Greetings. This is a bit of a departure from my usual video style. Not long ago, my editor had, some personal trouble. They get like this now and again. What you need to know about this episode of theirs is that it happened from a certain revelation about someone they used to look up to on YouTube. Somewhere on their computer, there was a very angry, depressed, cynical sound file that the editor was going to put into a video to talk about this whole thing. Before I could let them post it, I put my paw in their hand and told them, "No, this is the weapon of the enemy. You do not need this. You do not use this." So we sat down and talked, and the editor is instead posting this video. I want to put a less cruel spin on what they want to tell you all. As some of you may or may not know, the editor used to be a fan of a certain content creator here on YouTube, someone who went maverick. Now, this YouTuber used to be a pillar in the Mega Man community, just like a fighter is a pillar for many adventuring parties. The editor, just like I, grew up with the Mega Man games. They were a tough but fair challenge. They told a surprising story of a hero's burden in lore, where one must fight to defend others, but that very fighting also hurts others too. The editor had classic games in their game box, GameCube was it? On their Nintendo device, and a collection disc. There was also Mega Man X, on loan from a cousin's fiancé. It, in their words, kicked the stuffing out of them. I ought to stop being around the bush, yes. So, about that content creator. Sometime last year, or I'm not sure, but the editor discovered one of his videos at the time. In their words, they had seen a cool picture from, I think they called it a thumbnail, showing Mega Man and the schematic? What's the word? It's what the inside of this robot's high-tech energy weapon on his hand looked like, his arm cannon. The picture was really nicely done, and title got my editor to think, you know what? Yeah, what exactly is a buster? They clicked the video, they were treated to a lovely presentation of lore about all the high-tech weapons in the video game series, how they worked, both in the games and in the stories they told. It was all presented by a yellow fella in metal armor, a so-called Reploid from the Mega Man X series specifically. It was an automaton that looked and sounded human, but you can just kinda tell he wasn't quite human, so to speak. Turns out that this Reploid, Twitch, was the star of various other videos that his creator made. That creator's name was Reploid Revo. His videos are defunct now, as is his Discord server, let alone his... I don't think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it, so I'm just gonna call it what used to be called Twitter, his Twitter account. Given all that came to pass in the past couple months, at first my editor didn't know what to make of some things that were discovered this past month or two. But surely, this couldn't be right, could it? Gotcha, bitch! My editor, like so many others, got tricked by the main mask that Revo wore. Neither they nor I can do any justice to talk about what happened. We're talking years of proof. Receipts, as they're called these days. More than enough receipts to pay back Revo in spades, and to crush any shadow of a doubt about who he really was beyond the mask. So this is where my trigger warnings, as the kids would call them, will come to pass soon. So get ready when I prepare to pull the trigger on one hell of a blunderbuss. You see, Revo had a history of anger issues. This much was clear from even so much as his streams, where people would see him play games. My editor too also has a theory about his own personality. We'll put pins on these for now. Those alone aren't what's wrong with Revo. What is wrong with Revo is the fact that he, is a pedophile, especially against teenagers who he knew were in their teens at the time, groomed various underage women in private messages, is a proven racist, was physically and psychologically abusive towards his significant other, cheated on that significant other and forced them into an open relationship to excuse his infidelity, shackled them to swallow in a financial crisis of his, forced them to sell out as a porn artist to help make ends meet. All of this happening while he has a track record of being lazy and not seeking employment and making excuses for everything he neglected to do around the house, and he did all of this while putting forth the image of being a good-natured, misunderstood, creative mind with the occasional problem of anger management. Oh yeah, and he's a complete and utter zealot about anyone who dared question him or call out his behavior in the slightest, deeming himself the victim all the while, let alone a seemingly endless campaign to keep his actions hidden, or to hide them, to avoid people finding out about what he's been doing. And the jury is out on whether or not he murdered his cat. The editor had been crushed by this revelation. They had not gotten so much as through a half hour of this one extensive, respectful, nearly 3 hours long, video put together by a fellow named Burncrow SP before the editor knew Revo was guilty beyond all doubt. And shucks. The only reason Burncrow's video was 3 hours long was because there was just that much proof from many people. There's just so much said and shown within a half hour, and there's still 2 more hours of horror left to see. Now, I'm partly saying this to remind myself, but I regret to inform all of you that this is far from the only time a creative mind has been a real piece of work, and that he shall not be the last. It's almost as if ours seem more prone to troubles of the mind and heart than most people, for one reason or another. This isn't meant to be an insult, nor is it a way to romanticize or speak less of those who suffer unseen wounds, nor is this a way to make light of those who use their suffering to make others suffer. But it appears to be a sad fact of life. Suffering begets suffering. So why did the editor and I piece this together? Like I said, we can't do all of this justice. It's because my editor, ever the self-loathing sort, who's always been their own worst critic, sees too much of themselves in Revo. I want to explain this bout of sorrow better than they intended to, and I hope I can give some sort of insight as to what I mean. Do you recall the opening points of Revo's personality that I pinned? That he has anger issues, that he might be a little bit strange, but not just in a predatory way. Well, so is the editor, just as I tried to convey earlier. You see, as they began to watch more and more of Revo's videos, they began to connect with him and his character Twitch. There was the idea that, in spite of personal flaws and having a mind that grew up different from other people's, Revo really did just want to be a good person. And that's on top of, well, on top of the nature of the Reploid Twitch, designed to be literally coated with intense bouts of harsh emotion in his backstory, let alone the fact that, despite very much looking human, he wasn't quite human. To my editor, this felt like someone who may have felt less human at times himself, perhaps. For Reploid Revo, Twitch was his human-like automaton to convey this. And for the editor, I am the human-like animal to help them convey those feelings. It's almost like the editor calls on me to host their videos for a reason. I, Raziya the Seeker, have been characterized well in the editor's little hobby computer games about my life, my backstory, a child called Ash, let alone all the pictures they've drawn and all the stuff they're trying to write about me. I'm not a very good judge of my own character, but what I am told, I am kind, but I can be passive-aggressive. I want to help people, but I am quick to get angry and will blame others, before blaming myself, of whom I hate worse than anyone else. In the editor's own words, I am an exaggeration of their personality quirks and their problems. But also a person they want to grow up to be more like, someone to inspire them, and someone to help them come to terms with their own experiences. But above all, to them, I'm a lion girl to send off on cool adventures. And hopefully, ones that others can relate to, even if they aren't quite like me, or the editor, or had experience like ours. Their words, not mine. In my eyes, in spite of what the editor would say, what makes someone like Reploid Revo and the editor so different? Well, for one, they're not a sexual predator, that much is clear. For another, in spite of what they may feel sometimes, they still have a conscience in spite of it all. My words, not theirs. It's not like they haven't compared themselves to, say, Chris-chan. My various gods, what a rabbit hole that person is, or a badger's latrine. At the end of the day, let me tell you all something from the bottom of my fiery heart, and my dear editor, you had best pay heed as well. Evil is real. It lurks in every heart. Just as all people are capable of good, all people are capable of harm. Some of the worst people to live had many reasons and justifications for their actions and for what they've done, none of which condones it. What matters is what you do with your suffering. What matters is not repeating the same mistakes as your enemies, What matters is owning up to and being honest about your own wrongdoings and making amends. Remember that if you're terrified to be, become, or remain as someone like Revo, then you are not so far gone. Let me make this clear. I do not respect Reploid Revo. I do not condone or forgive what he has done. He has more than crossed the line, given the years upon years of him getting off scot-free. While I am not interested in being tangled up in the toxic web of internet drama, I commend all of those who spoke up about the truth of his cruelties. There is no drama campaign. This is exposing a predator and bringing about a reckoning for all he's done. Evil only triumphs when good folk do nothing. I honor all of those whose painful truths pierced the mask of his lies, like a beam of moonlight across the horrible night. I pray that someday the sun will rise again upon the lives of all of those whom he made suffer. To quell the editor's worries, and for everyone else like them, you are no fool for being tricked by him. He tricked us all. He was an expert at pulling the wool, keeping his true nature hidden, like all wolves in sheep's clothing are wont to do. No matter how much you might compare yourself to him, you are not Reploid Revo. You are you. You are the only you that you could ever be. You know right from wrong. If you didn't think their actions were wrong, you would not be so terrified of being anything like them. Always look at people like them to know what not to abide. As for people like Reploid Revo, children aren't told bedtime stories merely to know monsters exist. They're taught those stories to know monsters can be defeated. As it has come to pass already, and shall continue and to be in the coming days, you cannot and shall not escape the swift wings of real and proper justice, Maverick Revo. And so, I and the editor thank you for listening. Please, folks, take care of yourselves. Never give up on the world or on yourselves. This perfectly imperfect world we live in is worth fighting for. You are worth fighting for. Whether your enemy comes from the world around you, or even if the enemy comes from the unending war within you, never surrender to the darkness, nor to those things that lurk there.